Hello students, this video lecture will cover an overview of the bones of the lower extremity. So we're going to be learning the parts of the hip area and the bones of the leg and finally the foot. So let's get started. So what we're looking here at is the pelvis, and you can see here we have the pelvis and how it connects with the leg, the bone that's called the femur. We have actually two separate hip bones. There's one, and it joins up with a portion of the vertebral column. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of view how that all fits together. So initially, this entire bone is called the coxal bone. I'll write that down for you in a second, but it's made of three individual pieces. So let's tackle that first. I'm going to put here the hip bone is called the coxal bone. And I think what I'm going to do is just color the entire coxal bone, and then on the other side, I will color each individual section of it its own colors. Kind of like when we learned the sternum, how the whole bone is called the sternum, and then the three pieces, the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. This is the same idea where it's one full bone, but it's actually made of three distinct sections. So the sections are the upper kind of flat part is known as the ilium. Then as we move down towards the bottom, and I'll show you this in the app, there's a part that's decidedly more towards the front of the body, and that is called the pubis. I'm going to say it's the front portion. And then the part that actually when you sit down in a chair that you're sitting on, the weight of your body is sitting on, is this like sort of butt bone area, and that is called the ischium. All right, so I'm going to put in parentheses, that's the bone that we sit on. So if this is the front portion, the pubis, and the ischium is the butt bone, what would we call this ilium? It's sort of the flat upper part. So let's take a look at those in our anatomy app again. Here's the ilium. You can see that it is pretty flat. It's sort of curved a little bit. The pubis is in the front. Okay, you definitely see there's a difference between where this is and, like, for example, the sacrum way in the back. And then the ischium, you can see, is part of the body that would be where our weight rests. So let's color those on our diagram. So the ilium comes all the way over towards the sacrum and makes a joint, and I'm going to color down towards this little dotted line and then all up through here. And as you color, it is important to know that we're just learning the name of the bone. There's all sorts of parts on the bone itself that we could be learning. But at this point, we're just learning the name of the bone itself, and this is called the ilium. The second part is the pubis, and like I mentioned earlier, that is more towards the front side of the body, underneath the pubic region. And these are the same on both sides. I'm only coloring the one side, but it would be identical. So this would be the pubis over here on this side. And then the ischium is towards the back, the bone that we would sit on, which is why I said it was the butt bone. And I often tell my students the expression ishy, squishy in the tushy. So you can remember it's the butt bone. Okay, so pubis is in the front and ischium towards the butt. All right, a couple other things that we need to label while we're here looking at the pelvis, the two coxal bones, is that this is part of the vertebral column. I'm not going to color it because we've learned about it previously, but that's the sacrum. That's the fourth section of vertebral column. And this little tailbone down here is the coccyx or tailbone. Okay, so we've learned about those previously, and again, I'm going to show you in the app. Here's the sacrum. Here's the coccyx. And you can see how the sacrum forms a joint on either side with the two ilium bones. So for that reason, This joint right here where the sacrum meets the ilium, this joint right through here is called the sacroiliac joint, and it's a really important joint to transition the weight of our body into our legs. Sacroiliac joint, same over here. Again, because this is the sacrum and this is the ilium. And where the join, you can see, they're represented in the words sacrum and ilium. Okay, that takes care of the hip area. Again, two coxal bones, one on the right and one on the left, and I just divided this bone over here into the three parts. So ilium plus ischium plus pubis equals coxal bone. All right, so the second part of our notes today is the femur, well, the bones of the leg, and this one's called the femur. And I put an arrow where you can see the femur is going to fit right into there. There's a socket, another ball and socket joint, just like we saw in the shoulder area. So let's take a look in our app. Here's the femur, and we can see if I delete it, it's fitting into this socket on the hip. So that socket's actually made of part ilium, part pubis, and part ischium all together. So part ilium, part pubis, and part ischium make up that socket there where the femur sits. So that's our thigh bone. I'll put that in parentheses because that's our kind of common terms. It's the largest bone in the body. Now, as we progress down towards the knee area, we will run into the kneecap, which is called the patella. We actually call it the kneecap. So I'm going to color that, and then the rest will just, you can tell, is the femur. Here's the kneecap, the patella, and that patella is actually embedded inside of a tendon. So I'll show you on the anatomy app, if I can get down to the knee, tons of ligaments, but you see this is actually the patella inside there, so it's actually embedded in that, well, you can see the cartilage of the patella, but it's embedded in this tendon. And if I add my muscles, you can see it goes right into a muscle. These muscles of the thigh here go into the tendon that has the patella in it. So everything from this area, this entire bone, is the femur. Okay. Then we get into the lower leg. Just like the lower arm, it has two different bones in it. And instead of saying, we said the ulna was on the pinky side, little word, little finger, and the radius was on the thumb side of the forearm, we're going to just go by size here because there's a huge difference in size. So the larger of the two bones is known as the tibia, and a lot of people refer to this as their shin bone. So I'll color that for you. The small bone is the fibula. And I want to remind you that it's small, like a fib, which is like a little tiny lie. It also tells you position. And these are just little hints in the word that it's lateral. Lateral being away from the midline, so that's lateral, this direction. So I'm going to color those two so you can see the difference. My tibia in red, and you'll see the humongous size difference once this is colored. You can actually see at the bottom as I'm coloring that the tibia makes that inside ankle bump. Call it an ankle bump, but it's really your leg. So here's the tibia in red. Color the fibula next door. It's much thinner, and it's actually not even a weight-bearing bone. So theoretically, if you broke the fibula, you'd still be able to move. You're not going to be pain-free because muscles attach to it. But it's not going to prevent you from standing up. Then it reaches all the way down here and forms the other ankle bump on the outside, on the lateral side. So fibula is the smaller one. It's always going to be positioned laterally, sort of on the pinky toe side. Okay, so tibia and fibula in the lower leg. Then we've got that strange phenomenon of the patella or kneecap. And then the one that I left uncolored is the femur up here. Okay, so let's move into the foot. Okay, so you will notice as we go over the foot that it is a lot like the hand. These bones of the ankle area, they're also short bones. I'll show you in the anatomy app. We're here at the knee, totally wrapped up in ligaments to stabilize the joint, but you can see these little tiny bones here, they're all short bones. And it almost looks like it's wrapped up like a mummy. These are known as the tarsals. Now, the individual bones all have their own individual names. We're just learning them as the group. So the tarsals are the ankle bones, just as the carpals were the wrist bones. And that is going to include all the way from here, which is the heel bone, all the way up to these bones across here. And there are 7 bones. There's 3 in a row right there. So 1, 2, 3. Here's a 4th. 5, 6 sitting on top of the little clump. And 7, which is that heel bone that I had started to color before. So those are all considered tarsals or ankle bones. And again, if we see in the app, I've deleted a bunch of the ligaments, but you can see that there's 1, 2, oops, actually I deleted 1. 3 should sit there, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. All right, so it's 7 tarsal bones. It's going to sit right under here, right underneath the tibia. And then, as you may guess, the bones that extend out from there, just like in the hand we had carpals and metacarpals, these are the metatarsals. This would be in your foot in sort of the arch area, or like where your shoelaces would be. So those are the foot bones. And again, we're going to see that there are 5 bones called metatarsals in our foot. It stretches way back there. So we will do the exact same thing and number them 1 through 5. This time we'll start with the big toe. Like last time we started with the thumb. This is number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the 5th metatarsal. A lot of people will fracture that metatarsal right here. And then, as you may guess, the toe situation is identical to the finger situation with the proximal, middle, and distal phalanx, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to go ahead and label those and color them. Okay, so I've done my proximal phalanges in this sort of mustardy color. Remember, when we say one single bone, we use the ending phalanx. Whereas if we were to talk about all of the toe bones, let me do it this way. We say more than one phalanges, but just a singular bone, proximal, middle, or distal phalanx. Again, on the big toe, this would be the proximal phalanx number 1 and distal phalanx number 1. There is no middle phalanx number 1. This would be proximal phalanx 2, middle phalanx 2, distal phalanx 2. These are all 3s, just like we learned in the hand. Okay, so the same. These are all 4s and then 5s. Okay, so I've color-coded those for you. So tarsals in the ankle, metatarsals in the foot. You can see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then proximal phalanx, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Distal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice no middle here, but there is a middle here. Middle 2, middle 3, middle 4. Oops, those are the ligaments. Middle 4 and middle 5. So there you have it. Bones of the lower extremity.